Good day, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. And if you're new with us, my name's Eric. Welcome. Today, the sun is kind of in my eyes. Today's video is brought to you by Tommy66. I am here to answer your question about, is there anything with my facility, the barn, that I would change? Now, that is a very difficult question, Tommy, because this barn, as you can see, it's nice for goats now, but this barn was built for turkeys, not goats. So when I started, as you will see through the pictures that pop up randomly throughout the video, I did a lot of work here. Well, I did a lot of work. Me and my team of helpers, because I have lots of them, we did a lot of work here. It's hard to see where the driveway is now, but yes, that's a new building we built 2 years ago. But everything here on the outside, along the front, where these egg bags are, that's new driveway. We put that in last year. Everything has been modified since I first got here. So we're gonna start in the milk house here. As you can see, pretty plain and simple. Not really gonna change anything here. Coming inside the milk house. All right, so knowing what I know now to what I knew back then, there's a multitude of different things that I may have done differently. But I would like you to know that I did what I had to then to make best of the situation. So if I had to go back now, from now, to go back then, knowing what I know now to back then, there are very little changes that I would do, Tommy. Now, that doesn't mean that I would like to change the whole barn, because there's lots of things that I would like to change in the barn, but that's not possible due to the way it is. So I'm going to kind of explain that. First off, as of where I am now, first thing I would change, bigger milk tank. I started 6 years ago milking 100 goats. When I did my first milking, the milk barely reached the bottom of the paddle in order to agitate properly so that the milk didn't freeze to the tank. So at the time, this tank was almost too big. Now, it's too small. So, would I put in a bigger tank back then to where I am now? Maybe. I don't know. And as always, money is always a large factor. So, would I have put in a bigger tank? I had a hard enough time paying for this one. I doubt I would have wanted to have put in a bigger one and still had those struggles of my milk freezing. That's not good when your milk freezes. Second thing, over here in the mechanical room. Yes, it is a disaster. My cooler for the tank, this is the unit that cools the Freon, that cools the lines that run in your tank to cool the milk. This particular unit, I may have wanted to put it outside. There are guys that do that. They stick them outside. Yes, this thing gives off a lot of heat, so in the winter, it somewhat keeps this room warm. Sometimes that's to a disadvantage because in the summer, it is really hot in here, which in return is not good for the vacuum pump, which you may see down there. It doesn't like it too hot, so we have issues with that in the summer because it's too hot. Number 2 change. I have already changed it. Hot water heaters. I had electric. I had 2 of these bad boys, by the way. The other one blew up. Blew a hole inside of it because I have such hot water. I've already changed it now. I put in the outdoor wood stove. Literally, as of right now, this tank is just a holding tank. Yes, my power is still hooked up, as you can see up top here. But the breaker is not on because this thing does not use electricity. It was a massive waste of hydro. I explained it in my Heatmore video. I put in that Heatmore stove, saved me $800 a month on hydro. And that was on 2 hot water heaters. One probably wouldn't have been so bad, but yes, we've changed that. If you have natural gas running down your road, don't even question it, put it in. Natural gas is very cheap and is extremely reliable. Not much can go wrong unless it's in your barn, right? It's very rare that the gas company goes and tells you, oh, sorry, we're short on gas this month, you can't have any. That just doesn't happen, okay? So as for changes over here, that's that. Now we're gonna step into the parlor. So in the parlor here, I'm in an enclosed room. I would never change that because it gets cold. I know other producers in older barns that have them in the barn. And what will happen is after their wash the night before in the winter, they'll leave a little bit of, there'll be a little bit of water in here or in the lines down there or over there or whatever. And that will freeze, which in return makes for a lot of fun first thing in the morning when it's that cold out at night. I would not change that I'm in a room. I completely built this. This was dirt floor. Where I am standing, I would be, you'll see in the photos where this window is, okay? There was a big door here. So I am literally just standing in the door, looking in a massive barn full of just dirt and stuff. Just a little bit of manure that's in there. The guy that was here before me had sheep last, so a lot of his miscellaneous equipment and stuff was still in here. Just he wasn't going to use it, didn't want to sell it, whatever. It was just here as storage because that's what this barn was just storage for them at the time. So going to my parlor, Tommy, and everybody else. This is a double 12. I can fit 12 goats on both sides. I have a milker for every other goat. At the time, like I said, milking 100 goats, I only had 4 parlor switches. Now I'm at like 13 or 14. By the summer, we could be at 20. And if it takes 15 minutes for each one, it takes a lot of time. I may have wanted to put in a milker for everyone. It's not too late for me to do that. I'm actually currently slowly going through the process of buying the things that I need because nothing's cheap. I'm spreading the expense out, put it that way, to put in a true double 12 parlor to hopefully cut down 2 to 3 minutes per parlor. Over 12 parlors, you're already saving 20 minutes to a half an hour. That's just on 10 parlors actually. So I could save quite a bit of time doing that. Again, at the time, only milking the 4 parlors. Why do I need all those milkers? I mean, I was done chores and out of here by 7, quarter after 7 every day. It didn't matter, whatever it was. It didn't take me long. So, and I was single at the time. I was not married. I had all the time in the world. Okay? However, there are many different other things that you can do differently. For me, I wanted all my pipes and all my stuff hidden. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want goats to chew on it. I didn't want them to run into it. I wanted the simple and easy. I didn't want pipes everywhere up above. That was just, to me, I did not want that. This jar, everything, I wanted it down here. I would change that. because I've had a lot of issues with my sump hole and pumps that have been down in there. And I have flooded this whole area to the point where that motor is covered in water. Now, yes, you can just replace the motor. That somehow is a special motor. That's a $500 motor, and I've had to replace it 3 times now. So it gets a little costly. So I put in a really expensive pump down in here rather than the cheap one that I could afford when I started. I've got a better one now, so it's okay. But I would, in hindsight, when you put your jar and your pump up higher, so say I were to put my pipes up here instead, I could run my jar in the milk house. So I wouldn't have that in here at all. I would just have the 3 pipes and the milkers hanging down, done. Some guys you'll see even have them in the middle hanging here, and they'll have just as many or whatever, and they'll swing them from one side and then they'll swing them to the other. It's all on your current circumstance as to do what you did. I would also now might like it if I had 24, a double 24 parlor, but I did not want to take more room up in the barn. I wanted to have as many goats as I possibly could out there. I did not want to take away from space out there. And at the time, I was leasing the barn. So I put all this concrete, all this money, all this expense into this building as a lease. I now currently own it, so it's not as big of a deal, but we had an agreement and it was all working just fine. So that's why we went with the double 12 versus the double 24. I wanted to go with a pit because it's easier for me to climb down than to try to teach goats to climb up, especially with the ceiling height. As you can see, I'm almost 6 feet tall and I can touch the ceiling. If I had a stand that was 3 feet tall, I'd be climbing between in a 5-foot space to try to get goats in all the time, which doesn't sound like fun. So that is my deal, my information for you guys on the parlor, why I did what I did. Again, these head gates, you can get many different styles. You can get ones where goats have to stick their heads through, or you can get these ones where they have to stick their head in the top, as you've noticed, and then they lock in. The difficulty with ones that they have to stick their heads through is if you got a goat with big horns, she's probably not going to want to get her head through. Now, we did have a goat that had really big horns. We called her Harley because she was like a Harley Davidson goat. Her horn literally came up and came straight out and like came out pretty far. We don't have her anymore, of course, because she got old, but she would never have gotten her head through, so would have never been able to keep her or even buy her at the time. We do a lot of dehorning now, which keeps from the horns not growing, but there is the odd time where it slips away or you don't see them. We've had disease issues where we didn't dehorn kids because we were struggling to keep them alive to begin with. We didn't want to add that extra stress on them by dehorning. So that's why we went with the head gates we did. Now we're going to talk about the actual barn part, space-wise and everything over here. So now that we're in the barn, I'm going to talk floor space first, okay? So current regulations at the time when I was starting was a mature milking goat needed 12 square feet on concrete, and I think it was 16 square feet on a dirt floor. So if you have the capability of having concrete floor, you are allowed to have more animals per square feet in your barn to meet regulations in order to keep your milk license. I'm watched by the board, the food committee board for the province of Ontario, and they have regulations as to, in order to keep my milk license, I need to meet these regulations. Now they're trying to change that a little bit now. They're trying to have it on concrete 16 square feet, which makes it a little bit difficult for some people, not necessarily so much for others. Now, a goat, they say, needs 1 foot of linear length, so along the front, feed bunk space. Each goat needs about 1 foot, and at that 12 to 16 square feet of per goat. So 1 goat, 1 foot space, 15 square feet. My pens are 15 feet deep from the front to the back. So each foot of this pen, all the way to the end, I am able to be regulated and whatever by the ministry. I'm allowed to have a goat in each foot. For each foot of length of pen, I'm allowed 1 goat. That's on both sides. Why did I do both sides? Because we have these posts here in the middle. Again, this barn was already existing when I got here. If it was up to me, those posts wouldn't be there. But again, I am working with the best circumstances that I had at the time. Also, yeah, talk more about that a little bit later. Everything else that I might have done differently. We did, our water lines are in the concrete down in here because I started from scratch. We welded all these posts in. We welded these, no, the bars we did not weld in right away. We welded those in after the concrete was poured. But there's a couple runs of rebar, and on the bottom run of the rebar, we tied the water line to it, and then we ran it up where we wanted to put a water bowl in. We just made a loop and went back down again. And it goes all the way down. There's 2 more water bowls down there because I wanted to have a certain amount of pens. And then it goes across. Water line goes across to that side and comes back and goes all the way up and then into the milk room again. That side's on a separate loop because I renovated that side of the barn after I was milking, when I was like in my 2nd year. So I started in November. The following summer, I renovated the other side because over the winter, we exceeded my expectations of how we were doing. I needed that room. At the time, I did not need that room. Everything fit on this side, no issues. After that spring kitting that I was not expecting, we did exceedingly well, and I needed the room on that side. For these bars, everything is galvanized. They do break these bottom bars here because they put a lot of force on them as they're eating. My pens are 1 foot deep. It would be nice now, knowing what I know, if I had deeper pens, but this barn is built for turkeys. So it was built at the floor height that I'm standing at. My pens are 1 foot lower, so I'm literally driving in the back of the barn and driving down into the barn. Now, that just means I just created a big pool of water here for the goats to be laying in, really. So it would be nice if the barn was higher so that the goats could be higher and the feed alley we'd just raise the feed alley up to be closer. Also, it'd be nice if my feed alley was wider than 6 feet so that I could easily fit a TMR cart now that I'm feeding TMR. At the time we were feeding straw, so it'd be nice to have a bale cart or whatever just to be able to get in and out. But again, I worked with the circumstances that I was in. We made it work, and we're still making it work, and it works. It does work. I mean, there's nothing wrong. I can make just as good of milk out of this facility as somebody else in a brand new barn. That's not what it's about. Okay, it's not about the big fancy barn that's gonna make you all kinds of milk. This will make just as much milk if you're able to make the best of what you have with the circumstances that you're in. I mean, I started this barn with $5,000. $5,000. Less than that, actually. And I did all this. And where I am now. Off of a dream, motivation, determination, and a lot of energy and late nights and crazy stuff. We did lots of crazy stuff. Over here, this part of the barn, these gates. I love these gates. The goats actually eat more feed in front of these gates than they do in front of the open bar. I don't know why, but they do. I put this gate in at the 48-foot mark because each goat needs 1 square foot. I've had enough room for 2 full parlors in the parlor for each pen. And then that's how I split up. So this was 1 pen at the time, had 2 parlors. And then when I switched to milking this pen, this was 2 full parlors. And that's why I have the gates where I do in the barn. Now I have a lot bigger groups because I'm a lot bigger than I was 6 years ago. So I never use this gate anymore, very rarely. And same with the one on this side. Why are they offset, you ask? It's because I have a little hallway over there to get across. So that was 4 feet of extra room that I was able to use on this side as pens. So that's why the gates are a little mixed up that way. Now back here at the back of the barn, I talked about the ramps that I have to go in. I would like to change that to make that go straight out. I can because there is enough fall back there to put that in. But from when I started to now, I have gone in and out of the barn more times than I can count. Out this door that I've made big enough holes and ruts and whatever stuff back there that the dirt is moved away, and it makes it more sense now to tear that out and make that straight. But those roll doors are not exactly the most fun and pleasant to work with when you've got altering heights. And these roll up doors now are not exactly cheap either. So we're not sure what we're gonna do that way. When it comes to my ceiling, I have open ceiling here. As you can maybe see up there, that's spray foam insulation. The spray foam, they spray foam the insulation to the steel that's on the roof. I did not do that. That was here when I got here. The issue that it started, I guess, is because there's no air gap between the steel and the insulation. The steel was rotting from the inside out. So when you drive by and you see the pictures of the roof, it looks okay. But when you're in here on a rainy day, it was like a rainforest. It was like there was no steel at all, really. The trusses were all in good shape. For ventilation purposes, we put in the curtain, right? Because that was the way to get enough air movement and airflow on those hot days in the summer. I maybe would have done things differently. Now research has gone way advanced since I started back then. It would have been a lot nicer for me if I had put in a ceiling, an actual true ceiling. But it's lots of money to do that. To do this barn, and this barn is almost 11,000 square feet or something like that. It would have been over 40K at the time to do the whole ceiling, and I would have had to have done it all. I could not have only done one side at a time. So we struggled in the summer somewhat with having enough airflow because it's always the hottest of hot days that you get that there's no wind. 90% of the time there's wind, but it's on those really, really hot days that all of a sudden there's just no wind. We do have these fans. They don't even come close to moving the amount of air that they need to. It does help a little bit, but not quite enough. My kid area I would love to have done differently. I laid it out based on another gentleman that I had gone to go see before I renovated this side of the barn. I did a bit more research on doing different things. And the facility that I went to go see with kids was really nice. Now, at the time, his kids were a lot older, so it fit really well. But for the young ones, I really don't know how well it would have done or did. So I had laid this out for that. There was supposed to be a like a graded area here, raised up, and then a feed alley, and then a firm wall here. I still want to put that firm wall, like steel and the whole 9 yards covered up to block the wind, especially in the winter. The summer it's not so bad because we always open up that door and we get that good rush of wind going through, and that really helps with keeping it fresh. But as you can see, I've just got insulated concrete tarps up here. It does keep it warmer in this area than it does in the rest of the barn, but it's not quite up to par for the kids. I am hoping to do something different with this area in the near future, but we're gonna see how things play out. Right now, we don't really have a lot of kids, so it's not a super pressing thing to be doing. That's just how it works. In our feed area, I've gone through many different stages of feeding different things. We started feeding straw here. When I first started, we fed straw with a complete pellet. Everything they needed that the goats needed was in that pellet. And we fed the straw because they're a ruminant. They still need to chew their cud. So we gave them the straw as the fiber. It was a very balanced diet, and it really worked. But when corn prices, it was very heavily based in corn. When corn prices went up, it made it very unaffordable to keep feeding it. So we ended up switching to a silage, and it was a complete TMR, so it had all the minerals and everything in the silage. But we struggled with that as well because the goats are very picky and they didn't want to eat the fines, which was where all the really expensive minerals and all that stuff was in, right? So we went through many different changes that way. So when it comes to changing what I did in my feed area, we are hoping to make different changes later on, future down the road, because as you see, when I bring in my silage, I'm not sold on doing the egg bag continually yet. I really don't know. I just have really bad luck with birds right now, so it's got me down on it. But I love the concept of this short feed and feeding it. I really do. I really love that. It's a lot easier to handle. The bales are easy too. Don't get me wrong, the bales are easy too. And we are going to be making more bales. It's just the ease of making silage is just a lot easier than making bales. It's a lot less time consuming. Yes, there's more people involved and it's more expensive. Well, it's not really more expensive to make. I need to hold my breath there. Cost wise, it's still the same. It's just, you gotta have different weather patterns in order to make different things better. And everything just gotta fit together, no different than making baleage. So I would like to raise this ceiling up a little higher so that I have room to come in with the loader and be able to dump rather than having to worry about knocking my lights out or ripping a truss off too. That would not be good. Now this side of the barn is really no different than that side, right? We have our water lines down in the pipes. This is a section of bar I was telling you about that they break. I still have to fix that yet. There's really not much different from this side to that side. Other than it, I did make the change of I put in more gates because back here where the kids are, I'd have many groups of kids and only one gate to get each group of kids out, which was not fun. So on this particular side, I went the first 48 feet and then I put in a gate and then I went 24 feet. So really, I could put from this gate to that gate, I could put 24 milking goats in there, or I could put kids in there. So then I split what I did on the other side. One pen I split in half to make 2 smaller pens, and then I have another pen, kind of a leftover-ish pen of feet at the back that I have for kids as well. So that's why I have all of my young stock on this side. It's because there's a lot more water bowls, and then I'm able to split the groups up better that way. So that's one change I did. Also, lighting. I put a lot more lights in on this side than I did on that side, because I noticed on the other side of the barn, it's a lot darker at the end of the barn, and that's where all the goats, the problem goats, would always hide. So you literally have to go back there and make sure that you saw them, or otherwise you might not see them. I would not change roll-up doors. They are really handy to have, and they seal up very nice compared to the barn sliding doors. Yes, they're a bit more money, but at the time it was, this is the south-facing side of the barn. It gets the brunt of the wind, so I knew I really needed to do something really good on this side, or otherwise in the winter it would be a lot colder in here than what it is. It's better now that the barn is a lot more full of animals. As you can see, I pretty much have animals in every pen. Each pen is not exactly full, so there is room to grow yet, but the barn does stay a lot warmer now that there's a lot more animals in here than before. But I mean, of course, that makes for troubles in the summer when it comes to heat. The fuller the barn, the more animals there are, the more heat that there's going to be in the barn. I hope that answers your question as to what I may or may not have changed about my current facility here. Again, like I've said earlier on in the video, I made the best of what I had. I could have gone to many different people in the neighborhood with their barns and asked if they wanted to rent. This one, again, it was nice and close to where I was currently living with my mom and dad, just a couple kilometers up the road there. So it was short for me to get here because I was living there, of course, having to drive here every day. So that's how it was. Now, God has been really good to me over the years of putting this circumstance into my life. I was working as a heavy equipment operator before that, and I was not enjoying, I enjoyed the work. I didn't enjoy the atmosphere that I was in, which is why I'm here where I am, and it's all because of God's plan, really, man. It was all His plan. I'm just a little pawn on the chessboard that He's moving around, and I'm thankful that He's put me here where I am. I love the farm life, love everything about it, the craziness, the busyness, the slow seasons, the crazy seasons, all that fun stuff. So that's where we are. I hope I've answered all of your questions. I also hope that you've learned something new and can make changes on what you do and the decisions that you guys make based on mistakes or things that I've done and reasons for that. If you've liked the video, please give it a good thumbs up. It helps with the YouTube algorithm. And also, if you have not subscribed, we would really appreciate if you did. Thanks for watching, and God bless.